Did you know using your browser in incognito mode doesn't actually protect your privacy? Take back your privacy with IPVanish VPN. Just one tap and all your data, passwords, communications, browsing history, and more will be instantly protected. IPVanish makes you virtually invisible online. Use IPVanish on all your devices, anytime you go online at home and especially on public Wi-Fi. Get IPVanish now for 70% off a yearly plan with this exclusive offer at ipvanish.com/audio.
You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and this time we have a special guest, Erika Andersen. She is a leadership coach, best-selling author, and a world traveler who's splitting her vibrant life between Spain and America. In her new book, The New Old, Crafting Your Best Later Life, Erika reveals a powerful truth. Growing older is inevitable, but aging is a choice. We're going to learn about her story today and the backstory of how she got her book together and published with inspiration of storytelling. We're going to have her jump right in today. So first and foremost, Erika, thank you for spending some time with us. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for that nice introduction.
I appreciate it. So when you think about the process of packaging books together and publishing, that's an art in itself. So before we get into the book publishing part, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I, as you said, have been for many years a leadership coach. I started a company called Proteus in 1990, and our mission, it still exists. It's now being run by my younger partners, but our mission has always been to help people clarify and move toward their hoped for future. So refocus, right? To get clear about the future they want to create, either for themselves individually or for their businesses, and then to help them achieve that. So as I kind of stepped back from the business, especially during the pandemic, I was walking around a lot in nature during the pandemic, and I thought, okay, I'm in my late 60s. I don't want to keep working forever. What's next? What's my next chapter? And as I thought about it, I realized I'd already written 5 books that had done very well. Was in the process of writing the 5th about change. And I always, when I write a book, I always am trying to crack a code for the readers, like to take something that people think of as being difficult and complicated and show the easier path through it. So the code that I was trying to crack as I started thinking about writing this new book, The New Old, was how to get old well. Because there's a lot of ageism, first of all, in our society, and there aren't a lot of stories of people aging well and having wonderful, vibrant third acts. And so I thought, okay, I want to help figure this out so that I and other people can have lives in our 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s that are wonderful, that are joyful and purposeful and feel satisfying, right?
I mean, that is not a bad place to be. I think most people would hopefully aim for that quality, and understanding that everything is a journey. Everything comes with how well you prepare versus you executing what you have mentally and physically positioned yourself to go for. Yeah. It's an art in itself. Everyone's fingerprint is their original copy. So for you, I mean, you look like you haven't turned out too bad. You really pushed yourself to do some amazing work, and for you living multiple places too. We'll get into that in a few, but what is your secret sauce being able to have clarity for what you wanted to do in life? Because it's easy to talk.
Yeah, it's easy to talk. So let me put a little backstory to that. So the reason I called the book The New Old is because it is being able to get old is new. For most of history, most people have not lived past 60 or 65, right? So for the first time in human history, to be 70 or 80 is common. There's this statistic that I put in the book that I love, which is that if somebody's a reasonably healthy, non-smoking 65-year-old, they have about even odds today of living to be 90. That's never been true. So what was all throughout history was just kind of a little epilogue, chapter 1, you grow up, chapter 2, you're a grown up, chapter 3, you die, that little epilogue can now be 20, 30, 40 years. So we need, to your point, to get clear about what we want that to be. So there are 3 principles in the book. And the first one is be the boss of your life when you're an old person. And part of that is, right to your point, get very clear about your vision for this future, for this third act. Because a lot of times once people stop having a full-time job, once they stop growing kids, they don't stop envisioning that future anymore. But you can say, what do I want that third act to be? What kind of an older person do I want to be? And what kind of a life do I want to have? And so, I use myself as an example and the vision I created for myself. But then in the book, I take people through a simple process of how to create that for themselves, and then how to make a plan to fulfill it, and then how to build a kind of crew around you to support your having that kind of life. So it's very practical. The book it's a lot of stories and hopefully humor, but it's also very practical.
And speaking of support, a lot of young people don't think about going to doctors and getting checkups and having a relationship in that world, because sometimes it's scary and it's, see the price on things. It's like, wait, what? Yeah. But when you're getting older, sometimes you really don't have a choice but see the doctors and stay on top of your health at that age.
100%. Well, people have that same kind of flight or fight reaction. I know a lot of older people who don't go to doctors, who don't watch what they eat, who don't take care of their health, because they're just kind of avoiding the whole thing. And you gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta look straight at it.
I was going to ask, what has been your experience being able to manage all these different projects, still growing up gracefully and having the energy? Because I'm listening to you, it's like, wow, I need to wake up a little bit, because you have this massive energy about you.
I think that when you're clear about yourself and about the future you want to have, it like releases energy. I think a lot of our energy gets caught up not being clear and just kind of worrying and mentally wringing our hands. And a lot of people's energy, I think, is hidden because they're not clear. Once you're clear, it's like, okay, this is who I want to be. This is the kind of life I want to have. All right, now I'm going to do what I need to do to make that happen. So I think just clarity releases a lot of energy, right?
Right. Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and talking to our guest today, Erika Andersen. My next question I want to dive into is your experience between Spain and America. So my question for you is, how has living in these 2 different cultures helped shape your view and what it means to age with grace?
So it all kind of happened at the same time. So when I decided to learn Spanish about 8 or 9 years ago, and my husband said, hey, let's vacation in a place where they speak Spanish. Let's go to Spain. Okay. So we ended up going to the north of Spain, and most Americans don't know. Most Americans, when they think of Spain, they think of southern Spain, a lot of tourists, really hot, big beaches. But the north of Spain is very different. It's green and Celtic, and it's less well known, but it's absolutely beautiful. So we went there in 2017, a part of Spain called Asturias. We fell in love. We went back every year. A couple of years later, we invited our kids and grandkids, and we just kept going back. And then the more we were there, and as I was at this time both of us working on our visions, we realized that culture was much more aligned with the kind of older life that we want to have. Spain, just to start with, Spain had the life expectancy in Spain is 5 years longer than the life expectancy in the US. And a lot of it is because they have this culture that really supports older people and keeps them connected with their families and with society. And, older people are important there, and people depend on their wisdom. And it's just very different than it is in the States. And so that really appealed to us. So finally, I ultimately ended up getting a digital nomad visa. I think I'm the oldest digital nomad in Spain. And so we live there most of the time. We live there about 9 months a year. And it's that feeling of, oh, this is aligned. This feels like aligned with and supportive of the kind of older life that we both want to have. We come back 2 or 3 times a year to see our kids and see our grandkids and do this and see our friends. But Spain just feels much more like, when I say aligned, it's just like lined up with who we want to be.
And not to get off topic, but I can imagine the food experience in Spain is something interesting to talk about. Not to make people hungry, but have y'all found a favorite spot that you like to go to in Spain?
Oh, it's spectacular. In fact, our city where we live, it's a city called Oviedo in the north of Spain. And last year it won they have a prize called the Capital Gastronómica de España. It's like the city that has the best food in Spain, and they pick one every year. And last year they picked our city. So it's hard not to find a good place to go out to eat,
When you think about family, you mentioned about inviting your family, grandkids, and have them to experience what you and your husband recently experienced. How important is it for people to be exposed to different experiences when it comes to culture or just traveling? What do you believe that kind of does to a person's mind when they are able to reach out like that?
That's a great question. I think it's really important. So the third principle in the book is get good at change. And I talk about how, when younger people a lot of times think older people's lives are kind of stagnant and unchanging, like nothing happens. So far from the truth. There's so many changes that happen when you get old. I mean, people you love die. You might get sick. Your kids move away. All these things happen. And you don't really have any control over it. So I talk about how to get better at going through change, necessary change, kind of change that's imposed upon you. But then I also talk about how important it is for your energy, for your brain, for having a great life, to put yourself into experiences of change, to learn new language. Like, I learned Spanish in my 60s and 70s, learning a whole new culture, learning a whole new place. I think putting yourself into new experiences is one, it's kind of, your brain works great when you're 70 or 80 or 90, if you keep using it. So exposing yourself to new ideas, new experiences, new languages, new cultures is wonderful for your brain. And it's the thing you need to do if you want your brain to stay good. So I feel like it's super important to and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be moving to Spain and learning a whole new language. It can be doing Sudoku or learning a new, learning to knit. You just have to keep yourself fresh. And that really helps create a great older life.
Don't ask me why, but when you said the word fresh, I thought about a loaf of bread. You know how this expiration date on that is, and that's fresh. That kind of tees up the next question is, for those who are aging and things are not as fresh as they would like it to be, what would you say to someone who maybe find themselves into that negative, vicious cycle of talking, with frustration and bitterness just...
Oh my God, you're setting this up so well, Shmai. So the second principle, the only one I haven't talked about in the book, is master your mindset. And it's precisely what you're talking about. It turns out, and you know this, we have so much control over how we talk to ourselves. And it turns out that how you talk to yourself, your belief set and your mindset about aging, is the single most important factor in terms of how long you live and how well you live. In fact, there's this fascinating study that the Yale School of Public Health did starting about 25 years ago. They took about 800 people and they asked them a bunch of questions, true and false questions, to see what their attitude was about aging. Was it positive or negative? Like one question was, old people are a burden on society, true or false? Well, if you say true, you have a pretty negative attitude about aging, right? So then they just divided those 800 people in terms of their positive or negative attitudes. And then they followed them. They just followed their lives for the next 23 years. And it turns out that just having a positive attitude toward aging increased those people's lifespan by an average of 7.6 years. 7.5 years. That's like twice as much more life as you get from not smoking or lowering your cholesterol. It's hugely impactful. So in the book, I teach a way to manage your self-talk, to begin to speak to yourself more positively. Then there's a chapter on mindfulness, which I know you're familiar with, just being present, non-judgmentally, and then a chapter on gratitude. Because it turns out that if you can create a little gratitude practice, even if your life is difficult, it's hugely powerful. In that chapter, I use the example of my brother David, my older brother, who died 4 years ago. And he had rheumatoid arthritis for many years and was just valiant in working against it. But then he got cancer. And he had chemotherapy, and it cured the cancer, but it killed his body, which was already weakened, And he was I have such admiration for him. He was grateful for his life until literally the day he died. Grateful for his partner who he loved, grateful for his kids, grateful for the sun shining, for breathing, and he was such a powerful demonstration that you don't have to have a fantastic life to be grateful. You're just grateful for what's good in your life, and that makes your life better. That just being grateful makes you joyful. And so all three of those things I think are critical in response to what you're saying. People can, as they get older, get into a negative kind of complainy, unhappy mindset. And you can have control over that. You don't have to stay there.
One thing I want to zoom in on is presence and gratitude. And my mind's like a movie. When people talk, the film just takes on its own life. So presence is the door, and gratitude is the door knob. Yeah. And what I'm getting from this is that you can be present, but until you're grateful, you can't actually open that door and walk through a new experience. So my next question is, when older people find themselves finding difficulty with change, I can imagine sometimes change is very necessary, but in some ways, in forms, is very difficult for people.
Yes.
How do you navigate getting through the change process?
I love that. So I teach in the book a process for going through change. It turns out that, again, this won't surprise you, the most critical aspect of going through or not going through change is your mindset, is how you think about it. And it turns out that most people, when a change comes and it seems difficult, we assume that it's going to be difficult and costly and weird. That it's going to be hard for us to do. We won't know how to do it. People will get in the way. That's difficult. That it will take from us things we value. That's what costly means, right? It will take from us things we value. And weird just means, that's not how, I don't like this. Weird, strange, right? So we notice that when people who are good at going through change, when they go through change, it's usually not because anything around them has changed. It's because their attitude about the change changes. And they start thinking, well, maybe instead of being difficult, I could make it easy or at least doable. Maybe it will reward me more than it costs me. It will give me more than it takes away. And maybe I could make it normal instead of weird. And again, it turns out we have a lot of control. When a change comes at you and you think, this is going to be difficult, costly, and weird, you can go to yourself, wait. Okay, how can I make it easier? What could it give me versus what's it going to take away? And how can I make it more normal? You have that control. You can say that to yourself. So I teach people how to do that. And then the next chapter is called Modify Gracefully. Because a lot of times when you get old, you just can't, being 73 is not the same as being 33. And so, if you've been climbing mountains all your life, you might have to go on long walks instead, So how do you make that modification gracefully? It's by using that same process. How can I make this change easier? How can I make it more rewarding? How can I make it more normal? Because a lot of times when people need to change, either physically or mentally as they get older, they do it kind of kicking and screaming. And then it's painful and uncomfortable. And everybody around them is telling you, you really probably shouldn't climb mountains anymore. So it's how to take charge again, take control of your own life and make that modification with grace. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I got another visual. So we can't control the ripple effect in the pond, but we can choose the stone we throw in.
Oh, you're good at that. That's exactly right. You can choose the stone you throw in. Precisely. Yeah.
Because my dad will always say, the bed you make, you're going to sleep in it. No one's going to trade spaces with you. It's your responsibility to do that. So that's what I'm getting from these choices. Like, yeah, I may not be able to climb mountains, but I can still move. So maybe I just walk a little bit longer, and maybe I just think about the mountains I used to climb. Exactly. But what I'm getting at is it's easy to settle for what we think is the norm because it's comfortable in that place. Yeah. But it's funny because if you get too comfortable, you start to regret because you miss on the window opportunities in life.
100%. And that's also, to go back to the beginning of our conversation, that's why it's so important to have a clear vision for yourself, because then you can use it as kind of your North Star. And if you start to just like drift and get into an unhappy place that's not working for you, you can go, oh, well, hold up. Is this who I said I wanted to be? Is this the kind of life I said I wanted to have? Oh, no, it's not. I have a commitment to myself. I want to move. I want to do that. I want to do what I said I want to do.
For those who are listening, watching Refocused Radio, talking to our guest, Erika Andersen, if someone feels like I just have so much pressure, I don't know if I can go for it or if I should just, play it safe, what will you say to people who they know without doubt they want to do something else or they want to try something different, but they just feel like they're still scared to give it a shot?
I hope this doesn't feel like a cop-out. I feel like this book would be really helpful to you because it's all that. It's kind of like, okay, how do you get clear about who you really want to be? What will really bring you joy? What will make you feel like you're the person you want to be? Then how do you get charge of your mindset so that that negative voice in your head can't talk you out of what you know you want to do? And then how do you literally get good at change? How do you help yourself go through things and learn new things and modify gracefully? And then the very last chapter in the book, and this is helpful too, is about connection. Because it turns out that, well, this is not a surprise to most people, connecting with other human beings is absolutely essential to our physical and emotional and mental well-being. And unfortunately, when people get old, a lot of times those connections fray. Their spouse might die. They're not connected with the people they knew at work anymore. Their kids move away. So I talk about how to reignite, how to make new connections as you get old. And one of the great things about making connections is you can connect with people who don't have your same weaknesses, who kind of complement you. So for instance, if you're somebody who finds yourself getting stuck in your habits, getting stuck in your not very comfortable comfort zone, then connect with somebody who doesn't do that. And they can be a great example to you and you can talk to them about how they do it. So connection helps us on so many levels. And that's one of them. It's really important to have models. Like, for instance, I'll give you a great example. I mean, I'm pretty good at doing all this stuff and I need models too. So one of my friends in Spain is this wonderful woman, Pilar, who's just about to turn 90. Her 90th birthday is next year. She's just awesome. She lives in her apartment. She has all her friends. She takes classes in the Open University. She walks around the city. I look at her and I'm like, okay, that's who I want to be in 16 years. So it's really helpful at any age, but especially when you get old, to have in your life people who are living the kind of lives that you want to live. Modeling is really important to us as representation, as any kind of person is really important.
Once again, listen, Refocused Radio, watching us online, talking to Erika Andersen. I want to add to that, and that is not only is connection valuable, but I literally had to talk with a friend the other day about this, and that is you can be the person that listens to radio or watch a favorite TV program or whatever, and say one day, poof, you don't see it for whatever reason. You can either be mad, complain, worry, why is it not here? Why blah, blah, blah. Or you can go through the channels. Or you can watch TV, scroll. I mean, it's digital now, so it's like you can move. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. So the magic is the next move.
Yes.
Because we're so stuck sometimes on the past or the violin, I'm not happy. Well, what have you done about it lately?
Yeah.
That's the bigger question.
Yeah.
Or maybe you should start asking yourself questions to find some answers.
Exactly. And you can overcome your fear. The one little chapter in the book before I kind of get started with the principles is called "This is a Little Terrifying." And it's because there is something terrifying about being old. You're going to die. You're going to die sooner than you've already lived. You know, you have 10 or 20 or 30 years. You don't have 100 years probably. And so in that chapter, I go through, okay, so how do you face your fears? So, because a lot of times people they're afraid of things and they just avoid looking at them. So it's really helpful to name it. What am I afraid of? What's the worst that could happen if this fear came to pass? Okay, what can I do to work against that? And then do that. I mean, you can be kind of practical about facing your fears. And I think that's really helpful to know, because sometimes people get so overwhelmed by their fears. It feels so terrifying and risky that they're just like mentally go into a cave, you know, but no, you can face it and you can move through it.
Time doesn't wait for no one, is what they say. Whether it's this show at the land of plane or if it's getting older in life, time just keeps going with or without us. So with that said, if you're watching us right now or listening, go get a copy of her book, The New Old, Crafting Your Best Later Life. Been talking to Erika Andersen. If people want to get this book, what's the best website they can go to learn about your resources?
They can get the book on Amazon or IndieBound or anywhere. It's for sale anywhere, and it's paperback, hardback, audio, which I recorded, Kindle, so they can get it in any format. And if they want to find out more about me, they can just go to my website, which is erikaandersen.com. Easy.
But there you have it. Once again, been talking to Erika Andersen. Like always, want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. You're really good at this. This was very fun. Thank you.